Hello, dear authors and invited guests. Welcome to the technical session 4C. Good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 5th International Conference on Information and Communication Technologies for Intelligent Systems on behalf of ICTIS 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. We are thankful to everyone to present on this platform to make this conference more productive. During these unpredictable circumstances of COVID-19, we wish everyone and their families a protected time and we will together participate. I hope you enjoy the last day of our knowledgeful and interactive session. Now, I would like to introduce our session chair, Dr. Sanjay Gaur. He is an associate professor at the Jaipur Engineering College and Research Center, and he has 15 years of experience in his research area in data mining. Welcome, sir, to the session 4C.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now we will start with our papers. First of all, we have one note for our present. All the presenters will be given 8 minutes for their presentation. On the 7th minute, I will raise a gender limit. And please, while the presentation is going on, all the presenters kindly be moved. Yes. Now our first presenter of the session. We will start with our papers. Vishwa Patlai. Yes. Vishwa, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Now you can start your presentation.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, is my screen is available, visible to you?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay,
Just full
ma'am.
screen and start it.
So, good morning, all. My name is Vishwa Upadhyay. I'm currently pursuing my ME from Alpha College of Engineering and Technology. My guide's name is Dr. Dushyant C. Rathore. He is Associate Professor and HOD at Computer Engineering Department. So first of all, my title is Location-Based Crime Prediction using Multi-Class Classification Data Mining Techniques. Okay, so here the word is location-based crime prediction. So what I'm going to do is particularly based on the location, we are going to predict which type of crime can be occurred on that particular location at which time of the day. Okay, so this is the particular my research. In this, I'm using classification techniques of data mining. So first of all, these are my outlines, which I'm going to represent to you. Okay, first of all is introduction. The introduction is like that, as we can see, the crime rates are getting high and high every day. So it is really important for us to stop that kind of crimes and make the better world for the, or make the better society for our future generations. So my main motive is to predict the crime, so that what we can do that if we already know that particular on this particular area this kind of criminal activity is going to happen, so what we can do, we can call the police or we can call particular agencies so that they can go there, they can stop that activities before occurring. So this is particularly my motto of this research. This is my problem statement. Again, the problem statement is that crimes are nowadays increasing day by day. Okay, so if we know, for example, in UP and Bihar, we can say that multiple crimes are occurring every day. The maximum crimes are there. The crime ratio is maximum for that particular cities. So what we can do that if we particularly know that particular activity, for example, we can say, okay, if we know that drug activity, drug dealer is there and he is doing some activity, So what we can do, we already know, we can predict that, and after that, we can tell the agencies they can go there and they can prevent this before happening it. So this is my problem statement. We can apply different strategies of data mining that can help us predict our crime with better accuracy. Okay. So this is my base paper from which I have chosen this topic and from which I have learned and improved that. So first of all, my base paper's name is Crime Prediction Using Spatiotemporal Data. Spatiotemporal means space and time according data. What they have done 39 classes in divided 39 classes into two classes, and after that they have firstly performed decision tree algorithm on that data set. After applying the decision tree algorithm, they didn't get that much accuracy. So after that, they again applied random forest algorithm. Random forest algorithm, after applying that, they got the accuracy approx 68.3%. So to overcome the problem of undersampling and oversampling, they have used undersampling, oversampling, and after that, they have computed the accuracy to get the better result. So this is the existing architecture of the base paper. First of all, what they have done, first of all, they have taken the 12 years data, past data of the particular city. After inputting the data set, they have done data pre-processing, like data cleaning and everything. If there is certain kind of data that we don't know, we don't want in our data set, we can just easily remove that. So that they have done data processing. After data pre-processing, they have divided the data set into two parts, training as well as testing data set. After training and testing data set, they have done feature extraction. And after that, they have applied algorithm like we already, as I mentioned, did decision tree, random forest and everything. And then they got the result that is 68.3% accuracy. So now this is my proposed architecture. Along with the algorithms that they have applied, I have used one more algorithm, that is optimized gradient booster algorithm, to get the better accuracy for this particular problem. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, taking the data set from the Kaggle website. After inputting the data set, I'll do pre-processing on the data set, again the data cleaning and everything. After applying pre-processing, I'm going to do mean max standardization. Mean max standardization we are using because we have many attributes as our data set. So what we want to know, that which attribute did the most contribution to our result. So what we are going to do, mean max standardization. After applying mean max standardization, the attribute values will be between 0 to 1. So each and every attribute will be having the values only between 0 to 1, not more than that. So we can easily identify which attribute has contributed more towards our result. After that standardization thing, I have done divided the data set in two parts, that is training as well as testing. Training part is 80% and testing part is 20%. You can also divide the data set according to your choices. I have divided it 80% and 20%. After dividing the training data set, that is 80% of your data set, I have applied decision tree, random forest, k nearest neighbor, and fourth one is optimized gradient booster algorithm that I have used particularly in this problem. What this architecture will do, it will evaluate each and every model simultaneously. Like multiple models will be trained at the same time. Like one will be decision tree, one will be random forest, then k nearest neighbor and optimized gradient booster. So after evaluating that, we will do model evaluation. Model evaluation for that, like which algorithm has performed the best, which algorithm has the best accuracy. After getting the answer, we will store the result of that particular algorithm. And the this is my proposed architecture. So advantage of my proposed system is it is very memory efficient. Like,
Sorry to interrupt you. You have last 1 minute for your presentation.
okay, ma'am. Okay, so as I have gone through all the steps, these are again my all the steps, algorithm steps. The other one algorithm, that is optimize XGBoost algorithm. Decision tree, we know it will generate a single tree. Random forest, we know it will generate a multiple tree. But what is optimized gradient booster algorithm will gonna do? Optimized gradient booster algorithm will generate multiple trees, but what is the difference there? That optimized gradient booster algorithm will be connected, like each and every tree will be connected to each other, so that if we know that first tree has generated this result and this tree has failed in particular this kind of result, so what we can do, we can give it to the second tree and second tree will evaluate it, so that we can get our answer precisely. These are my code part, so that I have gone through. Final result is this accuracy wise. So the maximum result that we have got for that is optimized gradient booster, that which is my proposed algorithm for this system. So the accuracy is like this: optimized gradient booster got 95, random forest got 44, decision tree 43, and k nearest neighbor 28. So from this result, we can conclude that optimized gradient booster performed the best, so that with the accuracy of 95, so we can use optimized gradient booster algorithm by for predicting this kind of data.
Fine.
And last of this is my conclusion, that I've already told that particularly optimized gradient boosters has performed the best from among all the algorithms. And these are the references that I have gone through throughout my studies. So thank you so much.
Madam, my question is there. What is the criteria to classify training data as 80% and testing data as 20%?
Sorry, sir, can you repeat it?
What is the criteria you followed to classify as a training data 80% and testing data 20%?
Sorry, sir, I'm not getting the question right.
Why you taken testing data as 80% and sorry, training data as 80% and testing data 20%? Are you I'm audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you clarify about the percentage of training data 80% and testing data 20%?
Sir, I have chosen that percentage for particular this data set. As I said, you can also choose your percentage as per your thing. I just chose this 80% and 20% testing, 80% testing, so that large data set is going through the testing part, so that if we are applying algorithm on a large data set and we are getting this accuracy, so that we can say that it performed on large data set this kind of precisely, so that I have gone through 80% and 20%. Larger data set to the training part and smaller data set to the testing part.
Right. So is there any standard criteria?
No, sir.
It is depend on candidate?
Yes, sir.
Always?
Yes, sir.
Right. Which tool you are using for
Sir, I'm
checking?
using Python. I'm using Python 3.8, Anaconda, and Google Colab.
Okay, right. Next one.
Thank you, Vishwa.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, our next participant, Udaya Mauni Bupana. Are you there? Might she not available? Move with our next presentation. Mayank Parekh and the title breast cancer tumor detection using supervised machine learning technique. Mayank Parekh, are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, proceed.
share your screen.
1 minute. Good morning, ma'am. My paper title is Breast Cancerous Tumor Detection Using Supervised Machine Learning Techniques. In this, around the globe, the leading cause of cancer mortality in women is breast cancer. Have been under many studies and several analyses have found there many abnormal conditions, and risk of breast cancer can be diagnosed with the help of the fast and perfect judgment of the clinical physician of the domain. In the combination of human and computer intelligence, we have worked our way around the hybrid mechanism where we can make the use of both entities and detect as well as prevent the risk very early. The algorithm can assist the human factor with the faster decision making and can categorize data as a high risk or low risk tumor, because to avoid human errors, AI is useful, can achieve optimal results. Healthcare organizations generate complex and large amount of data day by day. The different form of data available from the health or information exchange, health records, medical device, wearable, pharmaceutical company for the medicine purpose and the research purpose, search engine data, smartphone data, labs and genomic data, and medical imaging data. This data in the different form: text, audio, images, video, records, notes, medical image, health records, pathological information analysis plays a significant role to detect abnormalities in a different organ of the body, such as blood cancer, skin cancer, breast cancer, as well as the tumor, as well as the brain cancer. Now, the tumors can broadly classified as a benign and malignant tumor. So that benign is not harmful, but in some cases, death occurs due to this. Comparatively, a malignant tumor is most dangerous, will cause the death. According to the Globocon statistics, 5% increase in new cancer cases emerged in the last 2 years. That puts 80% cancer rate. More than 7 lakh women died due to the breast cancer. But apart from the previous statement, the survival ratio is more than 35%. Investigating current and future aspects of cancer detection, machine learning, artificial intelligence, deep learning, data mining are kept to use for optimal results. Machine learning can manage noisy data and data with rare and uniform patterns, which benefits predictive analytics. It is useful in a drug and medicine solution or clinical trials and conduct body reports. But these activities are still in the early stages and must be coordinated to address healthcare delivery problems and improve the healthcare quality. So machine learning classified in the 3 categories: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced. We applied the supervised machine learning algorithms, 4 algorithms in the tuning parameter. Tuning parameter is the problem of choosing set of optimal hyperparameters. So in algorithm, each and every algorithm, when train the model, at that time, tuning parameter role is very important. In logistic regression is a practical technique with a long history based on statistical. It can be applicable to data linear as well as the non-linear data set. It has 3 tuning parameters: penalty, irregularity parameter, and class field. The penalty parameter state that how the model regularizes using C parameters. It can be a 11 norm or 12 norm or elastic norm. Based on our data set and training set, it will train the model and find the base solution or base the value of the penalty. C regularized parameter, it is a regularized parameter. If we get the lower value of C, it is more regularized the model. The class weight, it is used when class is unbalanced. Default value of class weight is null. The another is a random forest. Random forest, it can be also random forest requires the tree ensemble, tree parameter, and ensemble parameter. In tree parameter, mean sample list, max features, max tree depth, and class weight. Ensemble is an estimator and bootstrap. K-nearest neighbors algorithm uses the feature similarity to predict the value of new data point. In this, they using the two tuning parameter, number of weight and weight. It is the number of parameters deal with the available neighbors, different distance between them. At last, support vector machine. Support vector machine, supervised and powerful method. Tuning parameters are gamma, serialized, and class weight. Serialized parameter and class weight are similar to the logistic regression, but it is also regular in gamma. It is also regularized parameter, but when the radial basis function kernel is applied. So my our path to proposed work is most of the authors evaluate the proposed method based on the accuracy. Output of the proposed model, false positive and false negative, is less compared to true positive and true negative. So it's the accuracy formula. So always the accuracy is higher when we have the false positive and false negative is compared to. So different things on real world, there is a possibility of non-tumor or benign tumor. We can say that patient can be malignant or situation. And in my cases, in my survey, there is a lot of patients are available in front of doctor. When I visit to the doctors, and he's saying that the most of the benign tumor can be a malignant, and it is fine in the last stage. If any model miss any condition, it's a very harmful to the patient. The new approach or a model try to focus on the false positive and the false negative. The proposed architecture is here. If we have used the tumor data set, we collected we using the WDC Wisdom breast cancer database is here, and take the input from data set, data pre-processing from data set. So in the data pre-processing part, the noisy data and unwanted data removed. After that, there is a multiple features are available. So using the PCA, using the feature selection method PCA, we reduce the columns and divide the data training as 80% and 20%. We can apply the different data training as AT and SC. We have the CV protocols K2, K5, K10 are also available. So we can change the value as per our data and as per our requirement. But when we apply the more data for training, so we get the accurate result for the testing as well as the live data. Train the model using radio RF, KNN, logistic regression, and SVM. Evaluate the model and store the result and end. The trend after training the model, in this the binary classification we get, but we want to more label multi-class as well as multi-class, and above them a multi-label classification also is required for the B19. Implementation tools and technology in programming language Python 3.7. A development environment is Jupyter and Google Colab. Data sets are the Viscoin breast cancer data set from Kaggle. There is a 569 brain tumors with more than 20 different properties which calculated the mean, standard errors, and the worst measures. My conclusion is, after implementing the code, we have got the 6 algorithm results. The accuracy of decision tree is 91%, random forest is 94%, K nearest neighbors is 96%, and SVM accuracy is 97%. For testing their proposed technique, researchers use the diminutive data and comparatively accuracy and recall. SVM is far better than the other. After applying and improving the algorithm, risk assistance, and early diagnosis of the non-tumor, we will be implementing supervised machine learning and ensemble techniques to improve the detection accuracy on brain tumor data. Thank you.
Right. Mayank, this is a good paper. Can you differentiate data science and machine learning in a single statement? Can you differentiate data mining and machine learning in a single statement?
in a single statement. In data mining, machine learning auto train the model and choose the parameters. In data mining, we have put the parameters.
Sure.
I think, sorry, sir, I am not sure about that.
Because in the data machine learning, you are almost your algorithm you are using is already available in the data mining.
Yes.
Yeah, and using for machine learning, right?
Yes.
So what is basic difference between the machine learning and data mining? Because the part of algorithm and internal part processing is the same, which is available in the data mining as well as in machine learning. But what is conceptual changes that we can say that the algorithms are now as a machine learning?
No idea, sir.
Okay, no issue. Okay, fine. Well, always good paper, good efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please next, madam. Please next.
Yes, thank you. Ma'am?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Our next presenter, Harshil Joshi.
Good
Yes.
morning. Good morning,
Yes.
all of you.
Good morning.
You can share your screen, please.
Okay, ma'am. My PPT is visible.
Not yet.
Your screen is visible.
Yes.
PPT
screen is visible.
Now it's visible, ma'am.
No, you can retry.
Okay.
Stop share and share again. Yes.
now visible.
Okay. Thank you. All of you. My title is Internet of Things based distributed denial of service attack using Kuja Network Simulator. So basically, my paper is focused on Internet of Things and various kinds of distributed denial of service attacks which are performed on Internet of Things network, and I have simulated it with using Kuja Network Simulator. So as we are in 21st century, we are surrounding with the various devices that are connected internally with the internet, and this new kind of network is known as Internet of Things. Traditionally, all the devices that are connected with the internet are running on maybe same or similar kind of platform. So we can identify the different attacks, and we can design intrusion detection system that can perform on uniformity of the packets and uniformity of the platform. But in current scenario, we are connecting different devices like mobile phone with the TV, and TV with freeze, and freeze with AC. So we cannot predict that all these kind of devices are run on the same platform. In few devices, some operating system is needed, and in few devices there is no scope of using operating system or some kind of system that can control the whole devices. So the distributed denial of service attack is something that is not easy to detect and not easy to mitigate. So my paper is basically focused on various kinds of attack and how we can deal with that kind of attack. Now, so basically, first of all, we need to understand how DDoS attack work. So the internet itself makes of DDoS attack possible and more powerful, because in traditional network, DDoS attack is already available. But in that network, the majority of the devices are follow some uniform kind of protocol like IPv4 or IPv6. So we can deal with the IPv4 and later on IPv6, and might be we can identify if there is a DDoS attack. So that DDoS attack is carried out in Internet of Things network, IoT network. Basically, many malicious people have formed some kind of group that is not known as botnet. So what they are do in stepwise manner. First of all, they are trying to identify the devices which is uh, uh, easy to mitigate, and we can and they can perform some malicious activity on that. So that step is known as recruitment. So they are recruiting some kind of IoT devices that can be work as a bot. Now these different bots are forming some kind of network which is known as botnet, right? So initially maybe one or two devices are trying to identify various bots, and gradually the number is increasing. If one device is identified some other devices as bot, then these two devices can identify few more devices that can work as bot. So in that way the network is continuously growing. And the third step is command and control. So ultimately they are sending some commands, and they take over the control from the Internet of Things devices. And the last step is attack. When they form that when they feel that now we have enough network that can easily make a attack, or maybe some kind of attack, maybe some kind of size is fixed. For example, these much devices can be considered as bot, and then we can start attack. So number of devices is if we are increasing number of devices and attack is placed, then it is not easy to mitigate that attack in short time. So the various DDoS attack elements are: the attacker is a main person behind the attack. So the device that have started to identify the various bot can be known as the main person in that attack, and on which the whole attack is based. So if we can identify attacker, or maybe in initial phase we can identify that few devices are working as bot, or maybe working as bot. So we can deal with the attack on initial basis, and might be we can avoid that attack, or even if attack is placed, then we can reduce the damage done by the attack in pretty much manner. So the that organization which is negotiable host a program running on them that can control many operators. So that is known as command and control step. So the person or the online work which is attacked by the attacker, that is the last step which perform in attack. Now we will see various kind of DDoS attack. Basically, we can divide DDoS attack in three category: volume-based attack, protocol-based attack, and application layer attack. So in volume-based attack, the volume-based attack are known as volumetric DDoS attack. In that attack, the attacker continuously searches the with the immense volume of vast connecting equipment, and they are always trying to get connected maximum devices so that the size of the attack can be pretty much high. So basically, example of volume-based attack are UDP flood, ICMP flood, and some other flooding attacks. Second one is protocol-based attack. So basically, protocol-based attack are targeting the devices on layer 3 or layer 4 of OSI layer. So the main motive of attacker is to consume resources of the actual servers. So they will degrade the efficiency of actual server, and the degree of attack is deliberated in packets per second. So per second, they are continuously hammering with the some number of packets. So the normal server cannot work in ideal state. Third one is a application layer attack. So basically that kind of hello.
You last 1 minute for your presentation.
Okay, sure. I will try to conclude as soon as possible. So basically, third attack is an application layer attack. So that deal with the layer 7 of the TCP/IP protocol. So in that, we can give the example HTTP post and HTTP GET, right? So these are the standard DDoS attack. In most of the cases, you can identify any one of the attack: UDP flood, ICMP flood, TCP SYN flood, HTTP flood, and Hydra. I have implemented DDoS attack using Kuja Network Simulator, which is based on Contiki operating system. And Contiki operating system is basically works on Linux operating system. So why I have chosen the Kuja Network Simulator? Because it is open source. That is the first reason. And second reason is it is Linux based. So it is not dependent on some kind of uniform platform. It can work on heterogeneous as well as homogeneous platform also. So we can easily identify the different devices that are connected in the IoT network. I have actually prepared one video to simulate, but due to lack of time, if you permit, I can show the work as a simulated video. And that is my conclusion. So in recent era, we have seen insignificant growth in the IoT devices, which are poorly designed and with limited security features, because they do not have enough RAM, enough memory, in which we can load some intrusion detection system, and they can prevent by themselves how they can deal with the DDoS attack. So due to lack of attention and fundamental urgency, have been emerged in the market to redesign security parameters. So we need to devise some security parameters, and we can load it in some other devices. Maybe we can use edge computing or fog computing, and in some devices that is powerful, we can load this intrusion detection system, and we can pass whole the traffic, whole the IoT network traffic through that devices. But that is just a proposed thing, and definitely some work is already done, but significant result is not achieved yet. So moreover, small scenario has been implemented to provide nearly real-time scenario of IoT based network during DDoS attack. And however, some techniques need to develop, such as lightweight intrusion detection system specifically for IoT based network, which can work on low computational powered IoT devices. Thank you all. And these are the references which I have referred to prepare this paper.
Joshi.
Hello.
Mr. Joshi.
Yes, sir.
Did you implemented this pattern at anywhere?
Yes, sir. I have prepared some video of 2 minutes. If you permit, I can show you.
No, I'm just want to know about this. Actually, where you implemented this system?
In Kuja Network Simulator, in simulator also, I have not performed in real-time scenario.
Okay.
Because like various kind of devices and connection at initial stages, I prefer that simulator is a better option. And Kuja Network Simulator, we can create various modes which are the exact identical of some IoT devices.
Means
So
it is implemented in a virtual mode.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Not
Definitely.
in a physical mode ways.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine, fine. Nice. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Harshit.
Next, please.
Yes, our next presenter, Udaya Mauni Bopana. Our second presenter, Udaya Mauni Bopana.
Yeah, hello. Actually, I unexpectedly I connected with different Zoom meetings, so it went late. Sorry.
Okay. Now you can share your screen. Start your
Can you able to see my screen?
You're
Yes.
visible. Proceed.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Udaya Mauni Bopana. I'm from UTHM, Malaysia. Here I'm going to present this paper regarding comparative analysis of single-stage yellow detection algorithms, especially under the extreme weather conditions. We are dealing with the vehicle detection. So this is a comparative paper. The main abstract of our paper is mainly all the object detection algorithms. They can work very good in very good weather, like clear weather conditions, all those kind of things. But when coming with the extreme weather conditions, they are failing. They are actually getting very less performance. So this is one of the research gap which we are actually concentrating on. And so we want to deal with all the computer vision algorithms. So right now we took the benchmarking computer vision algorithms is like single stage detection algorithms. We do have two kinds of detection algorithms. One is two phase and the single phase. So we are actually mainly concerning about the single stage detection algorithms. Based on that, we are having some evaluation metrics. So we are considering the evaluation metrics as mean average precision and the precision as well as the recall. We are working on the dataset AIU rain snow dataset. So based on that dataset, we are actually taking the evaluation metrics and we are actually comparing this single stage algorithms, especially YOLO and its variants. YOLO is like you look only once the algorithm. So we will see why we actually chosen that algorithm when compared to another algorithms. Actually, our algorithm, all this research or the experimentation of this paper mainly deals with the improvement of the vehicle detection algorithms, especially in extreme weather conditions. So this is our introduction. As we already discussed, extreme weather conditions mainly impact, especially the rain and the snow impact and degrade the performance of the images. So we actually want to improve the performance of the images. So we want to deal with this kind of low visibility and all these things. We need to improve actually we are concerning about the domain of traffic management on all these things. So while comparing with the images, we can use one of the best technique is taking the surveillance videos, and we can able to identify and do the image detection, segmentation, classification, detection. So based on that, we are actually taking the surveillance videos. So based on that surveillance videos, we do have adverse weather conditions, mainly deals with the heavy rainfall and the snow. So highly we are concerning about the heavy rainfall. So we are actually taking these three algorithms, version 1, version 2, version 3 of YOLO. So these three are mainly concerned to the CNN based algorithms. So CNN, what are the advantages then compared to the traditional detection methods is like they are taking the hierarchical manner. When coming to the features and all these things, they are going to use the multi-level feature representation, like having the pixel high level semantic level, and it is having the multi-level non-linear mappings, as well as we can able to choose the YOLO. If you can able to see the YOLO is having the bounding boxes, all it is considered as a regression problem. So CNN mostly solves high dimensional transformation problems. So CNN is most preferable based on our literature survey than compared to the traditional methods in taking the detection model. So rain streaks are especially all these things we need to remove from the. Finally, I just want to tell, like we want to see which algorithm is doing better when it is having the extreme weather conditions, on which algorithm we can improve the further conditions. So first of all, I just want to give a brief introduction about the YOLO. So it is a one-stage object detection algorithm, which it is like very beneficial when if we are using in a real time, like surveillance and all these things. So we do have the 24 convolutional layers, and we can able to use that convolution layers for extracting the features and to the dense layers for the prediction. And the back network of the YOLO is the darknet architecture. It do have, we can able to predict the bounding boxes more like more better than the fast RCNN, and it anticipates more than 2000 area propositions per image. So dataset is which we are using is AAU, extreme weather dataset, where it do have different traffic surveillance intersections, and it do have the rainfall and hazy images even at the daytime and as well as the night vision. So but we considered only the rainfall and images, especially few of the snow images, and we actually need to see it do have the both the thermal images and the RGB images. So it is a very good data set available right now. So coming to the comparison, we actually did a comparison for the both three algorithms in the TensorFlow network. So we are taking the intersection over union. Based on that, we are actually considering the bounding boxes, if it is true positive or the false negative detection. So you just we can able to see the image data set is like this. Like we can able to find based upon the detection algorithms. We actually took the best algorithms of YOLO, but still if you can see there is a bus and all these things, but it can't able to identify those kind of buses and everything. It's just identifying one car. It's like a blurry images, so it's kind of snow, these kind of things. So the adverse weather conditions is like very bad. So all the, we just want to find which one is better. So based on the precision, we can able to see the precision result here. So if you see the precision result, version 1 is performing very low. Based on the advancements of the version 2 is performing little bit higher, and the version 3 is performing more better than good. So why this is happening? Why YOLO version 3 is having more good than compared to remaining two versions is actually version 1 having more localization errors, and version 2 is actually using the softmax layer, and it do have the threshold values. So based on these problems, it do have less performance if you see it in the precision. And coming to this version 3 is performing better performance while dealing with the problem, because it is considering it as a multi-label problem, and it uses the logistic classification for each class. Like vehicle, car is one class, and bus is one class. So for each class it is doing the individual logistic classification and binary cross entropy for each class in order to measure the loss. So for all these advantages, it is getting the better precision. Is coming to the recall. So recall we can also represent it as the sensitivity, or we can able to define the specific instances for the overall cases which we are actually doing the false negative. So if we see for this also, YOLO version 3 is having the high recall value, then coming to the version 1 and version 3. So here just want to have the version 3 is having the minimum threshold value, and its structure is like a pyramid network features for detecting the obstacles and having the various sizes. So it is can able to do then compared to the version 2 and the version 3, as well as the version 3 is going to calculate the 3 boxes as like a 3 scale function maps. Mean average precision based on the like gradient vanishing problems. And
Sorry to interrupt you, but you have to conclude fast. You have last 1 minute.
yeah, sure. Based on the batch normalization and the gradient vanishing problems, these two having the great difference between the version 2 and the version 1 and version 3. So we can able to we are using actually the COCO set labels for in that data set. So we are actually using the parameters like 1.0. it's like, sorry, 0.4 as the parameters, non-maximum suppression, and the threshold and the confidence values. So actually, we want to conclude like all these vision detection methods are facing challenges for multiple perspectives, especially the background noise like rain, maybe a snow, or it might be any different night vision or anything. So we just want to tell like based upon our comparative experimenting, Yellow version 3 is performing better than compared to other two versions. And actually our future work involves like how much degradation level. If the degradation of the background noise or weather is this much, how much the detection algorithm can able to detect at how much of percentage. And we want to deal with the correlation in between the quality of the images and the performance of the vehicle detection model, is to ensure the robust algorithm that can be worked for the further references for the even severe weather conditions and all these things. So these are our references, and thank you.
Madam, tell me about what is the minimum resolution required in the image?
Sorry?
Minimum resolution required for the image you are taking as a data.
In our data, you're asking about this data?
Yeah. Any kind of data, any kind of image, any image you are using as a data. So what is the minimum resolution?
Actually, here what we are considering in our data set, actually in our data set, the resolution is like is very bad. The picture quality is
So
not that much good.
I want to know the bad resolution.
Sorry?
What is the resolution? Bad image. How you can define the image is bad? So tell me in the form of resolution. Bad image resolutions you are considering.
Bad image resolution. Actually, we didn't saw that resolution of this data set.
You at least we know, we want to know what is in which stage you will declare as the image is bad.
You are like if you consider like the resolution, normal picture resolution is like good is like maybe 2000 pixels, like that. You're asking about the
2000
pixel
pixel is
range.
a very good image. It is for good image. You cannot just declare the 2000 pixel as a bad image.
Yeah, no. I'm not telling you like normal good image I was talking about.
I'm talking about the bad image. Pixels you are considering for bad image.
Bad image actually.
Yeah.
We actually took in this data set. It's not our own data set. Actually, we didn't check it about this resolution of this.
Actually, we can, madam, if you're not checking the resolution, how can you declare as the image is bad or good, or your algorithm work on the worst image? So at least you have to mention that what is the definition of the worst image? What is the bad image in your system? At least it is required.
Yeah.
Okay. Try on this, and please make a benchmark for bad image for your system, so we can find out the accuracy of the algorithms, right?
Sorry.
If you declare that pixel that this is bad image, then after we can find out the accuracy of the algorithms, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, madam.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, our next presenter, Sonia Thakur.
Yeah, thank you.
My screen? Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Share your screen.
Just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
yes.
Visible. Continue.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Sonia Thakur. I'm a student at Wested Department of Computer Engineering, Mumbai. I would like to present my paper titled as Eklavya Shaping the Leaders. So currently, as we know, Google Forms are widely used to create online tests. In the process of generating examinations through Google Form, there is a lot of work that is done by the faculties manually. This is a very tedious and time-consuming job. So Eklavya is a virtual classroom platform for for educational institutes, and it would enable faculties to conduct and automate this online examinations with different options that they can generate. Our portal Eklavya is a one-stop solution for all the examinations that are being conducted online nowadays. Introduction. So in this COVID-19 pandemic has moved us into a digital era where almost everything is taking place online, from banking to learning online. So nowadays most of the educational activities like assignment submission, quizzes, aptitude tests and interviews are also conducted online using different existing platforms like Google Forms, Metal, Classrooms and other e-platforms. These platforms have many positive points, but they are clustered into different specific requirements. So when a user uses all these platforms, they need to switch between different platforms in order to get their work done. So using different platforms for different work is also tedious, and hence this raises a need for a unified platform that integrates all these features like exam form, quizzes and classroom in one. So here I bring to you Eklavya. So Eklavya is a platform which provides faculties and students to experience virtual classroom and conduct online quizzes or tests conveniently. Our proposed system is a portal which automates this entire process of generating online quizzes and provides faculties with different options. They also allow faculties to create and grade assignments and also list the announcement. Some of the feature in our system will be protected mode. So when this mode will provide teachers or faculties to monitor student activities during the quiz and generate the reports. Once the session is started or quiz has started, the students doing any mischief activity, that is changing browsers, tabs or going into multi-window, will be detected and reported to the faculties immediately. Our web application will also have an option for importing questions from different platforms. Also, the faculties can choose questions from the existing repository, scan their documents to import questions. Our web application will also have an option for preparing tests now and even scheduling it for future. Along with these features, we also have Google Classroom integrated, and our platform can be used as an API for developing purpose also. So lacuna, so as I mentioned above, there are various existing platforms to carry out online examinations, but there are some lacunas of their systems. So first is Google Forms. So Google Form is a service provided by Google and one of the easiest way to collect data online. But it has some lacunas. So first is protected mode. So for example, during an online examinations that are conducted through Google Forms, they are not protected, and hence students can search to different tabs in order to search contents. Second is manual quiz formation. So in this, faculties that are using Google Forms to create quizzes, they manually need to type the question and answer or copy paste them. So this is also very tedious. Second is Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is also a service provided by Google and is a medium for communication between teacher and the student. So the teacher can share assignments, classworks and also grade them. The best part of this application is that everything goes paperless, and that makes this app so useful, but it also has some lacunas. So first is hierarchical structure. So in Google Classroom, when a teacher uploads a document, it just gets dumped into it and there is no specific hierarchical structure. So it is quite unorganized and also very difficult while searching any document. Second is user statistics. So in Google Classroom, the documents or the experiments submitted by the students needs to be graded by the teacher individually. After grading it, the teacher needs to individually go through each assignment and generate its statistics of each user. The third is Metal. So Metal is a technology that provides assessment tools, proctoring and online assessment, but it does not support mobile phones, as mostly meetings, tests, if someone don't have a laptop or computer, then they mostly use a smartphone. So this is the major advantage of this platform, that it does not support mobile phone. And virtual classroom, that is in Metal, mostly of companies use it for offline campus placement, and there is no direct communication between them. The next slide shows my literature survey that we conducted. So the first paper is the Smart Classroom Service System Design based on service computing. From this paper, we have concluded, or in the inference drawn from this paper is that they have proposed a smart classroom service that will enable smart classroom teaching for the developers to generate their own comprehensive and integrate classroom with the flexibility of choosing any alternative technology they wish to. Second is automatic question generation for intelligent tutoring. So from inference drawn from this is that they have developed a complete automated system there where no human interaction is required. We just need to put the input and knowledge base is generated automatically. From that knowledge base, MCQs is generated. The third is the automatic generation of question paper using users entered specification using a semantically tagged repository questions. So in this paper, they will automatically generate an entire question paper from the semantics that the user have provided in the question repository. There are mainly 4 tags, that is the topic, question type, cognitive level, and difficulty level that the user needs to provide. And the last is a research framework of smart education. So from this, their objective is to generate smart education in order to improve learners' quality of lifelong learning. They mainly focus on contextual, personalized, and seamless learning to promote the learners. So in Eklavya, Eklavya is divided into 4 modules or services that we provide to the students and the faculties. First is question generation. So in this, teachers can generate quiz or exams. So first is fetch from repository. So there is a main repository where all the questions will be dumped in from, or that can be scraped or scanned by the documents or any other prediction of the questions using the topic they provide. Second is scraping from the website. So if a teacher needs some question from a particular website, then she or he needs to provide the URL of the website, and the data from that website will be scraped and dumped into the repository if only it does not already exist. The third is OCR, that is detecting questions from an image. So if a teacher has a photograph of the image, then OCR, by using OCR application, we will detect the question and the options as well. The next is predicting questions. So generating questions from a textual paragraph. The teacher would have to provide a textual paragraph, and the questions and options will be automatically generated from the paragraph. The second is proctored examination. So this module allows students to attempt exam in a proctored environment. There are 3 features: tab lock, which prevents students from switching between tabs. Second is video analysis, video proctoring for students for analyzing students' behavior, and live dashboard that will give live statistics of user that are actually appearing in the exam. The next is classroom integration. So this module integrates Google Classroom features using Google API. That is, this feature will have all the Google Classroom functionalities, such as creating assignments, announcements, grading, along with some customized features that we are giving. The next is API architecture. So as we know, in the today's world, having to provide developers with an API system can greatly increase the productivity and build time rather than developing them from scratch. Hence, we will be enabling developers to interact with our backend API. The next is the modular diagram of my system.
You have last 1 minute for your video.
Okay, ma'am, I'll just continue. So this is the modular diagram. There are 3 users: admin, faculties, and students. So admin will be able to approve users, edit users, delete users, create quiz, delete quiz, edit the existing repository, monitor the session. Then faculties, as I mentioned before, 4 important functionalities, that is generating quiz, monitoring the session, managing the session, and classroom. Student services, the student can be able to manage their own account, session statistics, notification, attempt quiz in a proctored environment and with a time module, and also upload the quizzes or data they want in the repository. So limitations, every system has a limitation. So Eklavya has 3 limitations: OCR and prediction of the question. As OCR requires image and prediction requires ML problems, so we need a high computing server in order to process all these data. Then scraping of the data. In scraping of the data, as a teacher provides URL, so every website have different structure and which needs to be explicitly configured. So this can be improved by generating a model which can predict the structure and map the data accordingly to the JSON format. And last is Google integration. So if it is subjected to an institute, so for example, if an institute is not using Google Classroom, then they will not be able to access some of the functionalities provided by us. Except from these all features, there are yet more different options that are available that are yet to be discovered, such as student attendance, result generation, etc. So results of our system is that Eklavya will provide students and faculties with a set of features or modules to conduct online exams. And during the exams, live dashboard will be made available for the faculties to make any to see if any kind of mischief behavior is done by the students and take actions immediately. And the end, the result is an all-in-one web application for any institute looking forward to set up virtual classroom. So from this paper, I would like to conclude that Eklavya is a web application, progressive web application that will help teachers to quickly generate and conduct quizzes using different options, proctor exam using tab logs and video analysis, integrate with the Google Classroom, which will help the teachers to manage and share resources or assignments. And lastly, an Eklavya API that will help the developers to integrate features very easily. These are the references that I've already mentioned in the literature survey. Thank you. Any questions? Hello.
Okay, nicely present, Sonia Thakur.
Thank you, sir.
It's good. Okay, please proceed to the next.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, our last presenter of the session, Vamsi Krishna.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes. You can start your presentation.
Yes.
Vamsi Krishna. Yes.
Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Now?
Yes. Full screen and continue.
Hello, everybody. This is Vamsi Krishna from Amrita University, Amritapuri, Department of CSC. This work has been guided by Dr. George Gurkia. So our topic is machine learning models to solve VRPs. So what is a vehicle routing problem? A vehicle routing problem is where we have a depot and we have a set of customers that need to be serviced. And we are given a fleet of vehicles that we need to use optimally to satisfy all the customers' demands. And every route has to start from the depot and also end at the depot. And we have to minimize the distance, total distance traveled by all the vehicles. So on the right, you can see a sample vehicle routing problem with 15 customer nodes. So obviously they would be spread across in some distribution. And this is what a solved vehicle routing problem looks like. So here, this is the depot. And for instance, a vehicle goes through this route. Same with the other vehicles. They are shown. So why should we care about vehicle routing problems in general? Vehicle routing problems can be modeled in a lot of ways, mainly in logistics, where there are tens of thousands of customers and probably even lakhs of customers. This becomes especially relevant when we consider the fact that about 1/3 of the global emissions is from the transportation department. So we need to optimize it in some way or the other. So why do we use machine learning for it? Because we can also use heuristic based methods, but the cost of planning versus execution, the ratio is not very favorable for us with the heuristics. It takes hours and hours to solve a mere 100 customer node problem. So we use machine learning to better approximate the whole scenario and produce an estimate cost. So what we did was we took 3 algorithms and we ran a comparison on them. The first one is the reinforcement learning model. This is modeled as an actor-critic network, and this actor-critic interacts with the environment in such a way that the total reward at the end is maximized. The reward in this case is the inverse of either the fuel consumed or the distance traveled. The actor does an action and gets some kind of a reward based on the value function. The critic estimates the future reward. And the actor, while doing the action, updates the policy. And in the end, we have a policy which, in general, given any data, does the set of actions and gives us the possible reward. The second one is the neural large neighborhood search. So this is not entirely machine learning based, but this is a hybrid between the heuristic method and the machine learning. Neighborhood search algorithms are somewhat limited in terms of their search space, and they produce a lower quality solution. Hence, we go for the neural large neighborhood search. Neural large neighborhood search has two operators: destroy and repair. Since the repair operator is trained, destroy operator just randomly destroys some part of the existing feasible solution, and the repair operator, as it is trained, it carefully builds a solution from it. Dynamic attention model is the last and final model we did for the comparison. This model uses encoder-decoder architecture, and the encoder takes in the data and encodes in such a way that while decoder constructs the solution one step at a time, we get the optimal one. This multi-head attention is very typical of this dynamic attention model, and it's just multi-head attention is just a way of saying that these set of actions are favorable than the others, and we do this multiple times so that we have a pretty saturated set of good actions. The decoder selects the node and constructs solution one step at a time.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have last 1 minute for it.
Sure. So the setup and the results are shown here. On the right, I've aggregated all the deviations of these models on a particular standard datasets. So as you can see, in all these three cases, neural large neighborhood search performs better. This is understandable because we run the simulations on Google Colab, and that's not very compute resource extensive. But reinforcement learning could be vastly improved because it's just a generic model and a lot of tweaks could be made. That's what we are working on right now. And machine learning for combinatorial optimization in general is a good venture. And we do expect a lot more research in this in the future. Thank you. I'd like to take up questions if there are any.
Hello, Sanjay sir.
No question from my side. It's okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we all done with our presentation. I sincerely thank our authors for their excellent presentations in this session and all our participants for being a part of this international conference. I hope this session was informative enough. All the presenters would be getting their digital certificates through email within 2 working days. Further, all the papers are already forwarded to the screen, and the publication will be live within 5 to 6 months. Kindly cooperate with the team of ICTIS 2021. At this, I sincerely thank our session chair, Dr. Sanjay Gaur, for chairing the session, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Here is a token of your appreciation, sir. From ICTIS 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation, here is a token of digital certificate.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amit, sir, are you there?
Yeah, thanks,
Pardon?
Dr. Sanjay.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate the efforts of all the authors also who have contributed a lot to this conference. And over the time, now this conference has been in 5th edition, and we look forward to a physical 6th edition in near future. Thank you once again, Dr. Sanjay. And I think, Disha, we can have a snap pic.
Yes. Can you please turn on your camera for quick snapshot for memories of actual conference at CPIU? Ready? Smile, please. Done. Thank you. Everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Everyone. You can close the meeting.